So hello students, today we shall be taking up the next topic, which is magnetic flux and magnetic flux density. Right? Density B. So what is magnetic flux density B? So we have seen this earlier, that magnetic flux density B is mu naught into H. So these many Weber per meter square, or we can say Tesla. So these two are equivalent units for magnetic flux density B, where mu naught is nothing but the permeability. Sorry for spelling. Permeability. Permeability of free space. So the value of this is 4 pi into 10 power minus 7 Henry per meter. So this is called as magnetic flux density. So the equivalent we saw was electric flux density D. So B is nothing but an analog in magnetic fields, right? So how do we relate flux to magnetic flux density? So the flux phi. So what is flux? Total number of lines of forces that pass through a certain area. So basically it's the number of lines of forces. So flux density phi equals surface integral of B dot ds. These many Webers. Okay. So the flux phi equals into surface integral of B dot ds. So very important equations, which are these two. Okay. Now, going further, knowing that equation of flux. So in electric fields, we saw that what was Gauss law? Integral d dot ds equal to q. Correct? Surface integral d dot ds was equal to q from Gauss law. Now here we have isolated charge. So this is isolated charge q. But do we have any isolated north pole or south pole? No, we don't have. So in magnetic fields, an equivalent equation of Gauss law is taken. Integral B dot ds is taken, but because there is no isolated north pole or south pole, this is equated to 0. So this is a magnetic field equivalent of Gauss law, but must be equated to 0 because you don't have any magnetic monopole like north or south separately. Okay, so this is the equivalent of Gauss law. So note you have a 0 always. Now can you apply divergence theorem on this? Let us say equation 1. Can you apply divergence theorem to this? To 1 gives what? So divergence theorem converts surface integral into a volume integral. So what you get is volume integral of del dot B into dV equal to 0. So that implies what? Del dot B equal to 0. So again a very important equation. So what does it say? Divergence of magnetic flux density is 0. So what do you mean by divergence? the rate of flow of any quantity is your divergence. So what does it say? Basically, the magnetic fields form a loop. It doesn't go anywhere outside, right? So we are not talking about radiation. We are just talking about static magnetic field. So a static magnetic field does not diverge. It doesn't go anywhere. It forms a loop within itself. So that is what is meant by this equation. So this is nothing but again the point form of Gauss law in magnetic fields, steady magnetic fields. So next we take up what is called as conservative field. So what do you mean by conservative field? So we know that the work done. So we go back to electric field intensity. What was there? The work done was equal to minus q integral E dot dl. This was what was work done. Work done to move a charge. Let us say from point A to point B. Right? Now, suppose, so this is my point A. Start from here, traverse a distance like this circularly, and I come back to the same point A. What is the work done? So this equals, so let us say the charge amount of charge is Q that traverses from here to the same point back. So what is that? It starts from a end set A, E dot dl. Correct? So what is the work done? Basically, there is no work done. Work done is 0. Is it not? So therefore, such fields where you get integral E dot dl equal to 0, such fields are called as conservative fields. So why this integral with a circle here? So it shows that I start from the point and at the same point. So that is what this closed integral means. Okay. So I'll write it properly. Closed integral E dot dl equal to 0. So such fields are called as conservative. So E is conservative basically. You start from the same point and at the same point integral E dot dl becomes equal to 0. Now what is the importance of conservative field? What is the importance? We saw that integral E dot dl equal to 0. This was what? This is basically a line integral. Right? It's a line integral. Now apply Stokes theorem. Stokes theorem to this equation. Let us say this equation is number 2. Then what will happen? What does Stokes theorem do? It converts line integral into a surface integral. So what will happen? E dot dl becomes integral, surface integral of del cross E into ds. Right? So because the RHS is 0, this is also equal to 0. So therefore, taking up these two equations, we see that del cross E dot ds, of course the surface integral is 0, which implies what? Del cross E equal to 0. So this is the point form of conservative fields. So this you call this as a point form of the definition of conservative fields basically. Right? So the point is, if you have an integral like this in the equation, then it is called as an integral form. If you have an operator del in the equation, such equations are called as point forms. point R, right? Now we come to a very important point here. So whatever we have studied till now, we'll just consolidate. Okay, so we'll change the color here. We'll just consolidate. So we'll take up the point form of whatever we have studied till now in electrostatics and magnetostatics in total, in complete terms. So we saw the Gauss law. So del dot D equals rho V, first equation. Again, in electrostatics, we saw conservative field. So we'll take this one. So del cross E equal to 0. For a conservative field, this holds true. We saw Ampere circuital law in point form, del cross H equal to J. So if you've forgotten this, please refer my previous lectures. Also, recently, just now we saw del dot P equal to 0. Yes, so this is equation number 2. Now, these 4 equations combined together form Maxwell's equation in point form. So I repeat, these 4 equations combined together, we call it as Maxwell's equations. In point form. The point form means you have a del operator attached to it. Now we will see the integral form. So I hope you have some grip on this from now onwards. These 4 equations combined together are called as Maxwell's equation. 2 equations are of electric field, 2 equations are of magnetic fields. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. What about integral form? Integral form. So same thing, integral, surface integral d dot ds equal to q. Okay. What was the next one? Integral e dot dl equal to 0 because of whenever we consider electric field as conservative. Of course, you have a line integral. Next, integral h dot dl equal to I. Next, you have integral b dot ds equal to 0. Yes, we have seen this here, right? Equation 1. Now collecting all these are called as Maxwell's equation in integral form. So these are Maxwell's equation in integral form. Now note here, both the forms are not including any time component. So we are not yet started, we have not yet started with time varying magnetic fields and time varying Maxwell's equations. We are just writing down Maxwell's equation for static electric and magnetic fields, right? So remember this point very well. We have not yet started with any time component. Okay, so very important point to note here. This forms the general basis for our further discussions later. Now we take up scalar and vector magnetic potentials. Scalar and vector magnetic potentials. Now, What is the scalar and vector magnetic potential? First, we will take up what is called a scalar magnetic potential. Now, in electric field, what do we have? E equals minus del V, correct? So, an analog or a dual of this equation 1 in magnetic field will be H equals minus del into Pm. Okay, so as in electric field, we have an equivalent in magnetic field with the same logic. Now, the only differentiation here is Vm is nothing but the scalar magnetic potential. Now, remember in equation number 1, where we dealt with electric field, there was only one potential. There was nothing called a scalar electric potential or a vector electric potential. So here we have a difference. We have to specify whether we are dealing with scalar magnetic potential or vector magnetic potential. So in this equation 2, which is a dual of your electric field in magnetic field, we get magnetic field intensity H equals minus del into Vm, where Vm is nothing but your scalar magnetic potential. Right? Now, what is the scalar magnetic potential and why we don't use it? Okay, we never use scalar magnetic potential. So why is that? So first of all, we will take that we'll take up that problem of why we are not using scalar magnetic potential by an example. So I'll just write it here. We generally don't use scalar magnetic potentials. So why don't we use that, even though it is a dual? That will be seen by an example here. So we know that magnetic field intensity H due to an infinite current carrying filament is, so what is the formula? If I have an infinite filament carrying current I, so I have I by 2 pi into rho to A phi. Is it not? So this is what we saw and derived earlier. Correct? Now, from equation 2 here, from this equation, we see that H equals minus del Vm, where Vm is your scalar magnetic potential. So hence equating, what do we get? Minus del Vm equals I by 2 pi rho into A phi. Correct? So this RHS we are mapping together. Now, because I have only A phi component, I have to take only A phi component here. So therefore, we are interested in only the A phi component, I by 2 pi rho to A phi, because RHS is only having A phi component. So what is the gradient? If I apply the expansion of gradient in cylindrical coordinate system, what do I get? So this will be minus of 1 by rho to dou Vm by dou phi. So what is this? This fellow here. I'm taking the LHS with respect to only phi. So this A phi equals I by 2 pi rho into A phi. So what gets cancelled? So dou Vm by dou phi equals, so rho gets cancelled, A phi gets cancelled. So what do I have? I by 2 pi with a negative sign. Negative sign goes here. So because we have only one variable, this can be changed to dvm by d phi equals minus I by 2 pi. So if I solve this, what do you get? So vector magnetic potential, sorry, scalar magnetic potential Vm equals minus I by 2 pi into phi. So we have arrived at some equation, let us say 3. Now concentrate on this equation. We have a problem here. What is that problem? So I'll just write the equation again, minus I by 2 pi into phi. What is the problem? Let us say this is the infinite line I have. I have an infinite line like this. I start from a point P somewhere here. So this I start from a point P. So I traverse around like this and I come back to the same point. So start from P, start with 0 angle, I come back at the same angle. Okay. So what does Vm become? What does Vm become? This will be minus I by 2 pi into what is the angle I traverse from P to P again? From this point to this point, same point again, 2 pi. So this is equal to minus I. So this is where specifically traversing for 360 degrees. Okay. But let us say I traverse once more in the same path. I traverse once more in the same path like this again. Then what will happen? So then Vm becomes for 4 pi, right? I traverse once more, means 2 times I have traveled. So this becomes 4 pi. So this is minus 2 pi 2I. If I travel once again, means if I circulate twice. Okay. So then Vm becomes minus 2I. Right? What if I traverse once more? So additional 360 degree I traverse. Then what will happen? Traverse once more. Same path. Start from the same point, come again at the same point. So what will happen then here? So this equals minus I by 2 pi into 6 pi. So this is minus 3I. So this is for the third rotation which I am going. Okay. So you can see a trend here. So I traverse once, I get magnetic vector potential as minus I. So phi, I'll write a table. So for one circle, for an angle of 360 degrees, I get minus I. I circulate from the same point again, I get minus 2 pi, 2I. Again, go through the same path, again I get 3I. So what you can see here is the point remains same. Is it not? What am I doing here? I am measuring magnetic potential at a particular point. So if I traverse once, I get one number. I traverse once more from the same point back to the same point again. I get one more different number. Again, I traverse the same path and come back to the same point. Again, I get different number. Again, I traverse from the same point and circulate back to the same point again. Again, I get different number. So what does it mean? So at a particular point, at the same point, same point P, we have multiple vector scalar magnetic potentials Vm for the same point P. So it depends on how many times you have traversed. So is it logical? Should we accept such kind of number and that numerical value which depends on the number of times you have traversed or circulated from the same point? No. So hence this is not acceptable. It is just not acceptable to have different magnetic potentials at the same point. Okay, which depends just on how many times you have traversed. So that is absurd, right? So hence we are never ever take scalar magnetic potential Vm. So hence what are you going to do now? So we introduce something called as vector magnetic potential. So what is this vector magnetic potential? Now this we will not have an explicit definition, but what we can say here is, because the equation, one of the Maxwell's equation says that del dot B equal to 0, we must have an equation or a curl. You must have a curl which satisfies the above equation. Okay. So it means to say that because mathematically it is possible that divergence of a curl is 0, we will have something like this, which satisfies mathematical analysis also. So divergence of a curl is always 0. So what am I doing instead? Here I am substituting B with the curl of a quantity. So what am I doing? So here we are substituting quantity A instead of magnetic flux density B. Now this quantity A is called the vector magnetic potential. Okay, this quantity A is called as the vector magnetic potential. So how do we get A? Basically, we get A. So we get B by applying curl to A. So this is an indirect definition of vector magnetic potential. So it's a quantity, when you apply curl to it, you get magnetic flux density. That is called as vector magnetic potential. So there is no explicit direct definition of how we arrive at A. Instead, we have an indirect definition which says that whenever you apply curl to vector magnetic potential, you get magnetic flux density B. Right? So for a differential current element, means for a very small current element, you can have A as mu naught I to dl by 4 pi r. So the derivation we are not going to do, but we are just going to remember that A can be explicitly written after some derivations that and some assumptions such that A equals mu naught I dl by 4 pi r. Right? So this is called as the vector magnetic potential. So very important thing here, the vector magnetic potential is a potential to which when you apply a curl, you end up with a magnetic flux density B. Now the direction of A will be in line with the direction of the current. So that is the advantage of this. Okay. So very important. The direction of A is in line with the direction of the current passing through any filament I. Filament is I. Very important. Now this vector magnetic potentials are used in antennas. All antennas which we design later will include this component vector magnetic field A and not scalar magnetic field Vm. Okay. So one more equivalent derivation we have here is this derivation we are not going to do. So we apply Laplacian to A, you get minus mu naught into J. So why do we want this equation to be important? So this fellow connects magnetic field to electric fields. Current and instead to electric fields. Okay. So remember this very well. The equations we are not deriving but are worthwhile remembering. Okay. So what is vector magnetic potential? So it's a potential, it's a vector on which when you apply a curl, you get magnetic flux density B. For a small element, a differential element, A can be arrived at this, and a Laplacian will get you the current density J. Instead, you can connect that to electric fields. Right? So that's all for today. So we'll stop here.